I'm Claire. I'm a 29-year-old homemaker. I've been married to Matt, who's 34, for 4 years now. We don't have any kids. I met Matt when I was about to graduate from college. I was working part-time during peak season at a medium-sized computer store my parents owned. They were short-staffed in the IT department. Back then, I used to create YouTube videos with my friends. I was good at video editing and programming, so my dad relied on me a lot. Matt was the chief of the department at that time. He was meticulous, quiet, kind, and had a great rapport with people. He also had my dad's full trust. We worked on many projects together, and it didn't take long for us to start dating. Both my dad and mom supported our relationship, and our journey to marriage was smooth. After getting married, Matt started a subsidiary company with some financial help from my dad. Matt and Dad got along so well. They looked more like a real parent and child than Dad and I did. A year after its inception, Matt's company began to thrive. That's when my dad's health started deteriorating, leading to frequent hospital visits. Being deeply involved in almost every aspect of the medium-sized company, Dad couldn't manage things as before, and the business started to decline. For my part, I was somewhat reassured that Matt would be there to help me when the time came. I thought Matt would step in if things got too bad, since he had been the chief and knew the ins and outs of the company. But even though he must have known about the situation, he didn't say a word. I assumed Matt was waiting for Dad to ask for help, respecting his pride. However, Dad's condition worsened, requiring long-term hospitalization. When I rushed to visit him after getting a call from Mom, Dad, weakened by his illness, said with a grim face, "If things continue like this, we might go bankrupt." I felt he was silently asking for help. On my way out, Mom, who was helping with the accounts, asked, "Can't we consult Matt?" Mom said he thought Dad couldn't ask for help or to represent himself if he couldn't trouble Matt, who was finally starting to make a difference after a year of independence. She said Dad wouldn't ask Matt for help because he didn't want to burden him, especially now that his business was finally picking up. Knowing Dad's stubborn yet kind nature, I knew he'd never ask for help. So I told Mom, "Don't worry, I'll ask Matt for assistance." I believed Matt would help Dad. That night, I decided to talk to Matt. While he was working on his laptop in the living room, I started, "Hey, about Dad's company?" I explained Dad's health, his low spirits, and the dire state of his business, asking if he could help. I expected him to willingly assist, but his response was the opposite. Without even looking up from his laptop, he said, "You're joking, right?" I was taken aback. Whether he had always felt this way or I just hadn't noticed, Matt seemed like a completely different person. I can't see any trace of his friendliness or kindness. He looked at me, smirked, and said, "Why would I take on extra work now when my business is finally growing? Even if your dad's company goes under, it won't affect mine since we only handle IT." I had misunderstood him. He wasn't concerned about Dad at all. I was so wrong to think that Matt would take Dad's position and not speak until Dad asked for help. He didn't have the slightest compassion or concern for Dad. In disbelief, I retorted, "After all the financial support and client referrals Dad gave you when you started, isn't this a bit too cold-hearted?" After a brief pause, he coldly replied, "That is that, this is this. Mixing personal feelings with business never ends well. What if we both go under? I've come this far, and I won't do anything that's not mutually beneficial." I had to hold back my urge to shout at Matt's attitude, as if he hadn't received any favors from Dad. If I upset Matt now, I might never be able to persuade him again. Taking a deep breath to calm myself, I tried again. "Then, could you at least take charge of the company until Dad gets discharged from the hospital?" No matter how many times we discussed it, Matt's answer remained the same. Time passed without any resolution, and by the end of that month, Dad's company was declared bankrupt by the court. There was nothing we could do now. Dad must have been deeply disappointed that Matt, whom he had cared for so much, didn't lift a finger to help and let the company go bankrupt so easily. Dad became completely disheartened, especially since there was no clear date for his discharge. Mom had to handle the company's debt settlement all by herself. Handling employee salaries, severance, and dealing with business partners was too much for Mom alone. I decided to tell Matt that I wanted to go back to my parents' house to help Mom at least until the debt settlement was completed. Holding back my resentment that Matt might have prevented the bankruptcy if he had acted, I said, "I'm thinking of going back to my parents' house for a while to help Mom. Can you support us with some living expenses until things settle down?" Matt, as usual, was sitting on the couch, working on his laptop. I had so many things I wanted to say, but this wasn't the time for arguments. Yet again, Matt's unbelievable response came. Without showing any concern from my parents, he said, "Why? Nothing will change if you go. Think about our company." Stunned by Matt's coldness, I couldn't think straight. "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" Interrupting me, Matt continued calmly. "Instead of helping a bankrupt company, you should help mine. I was thinking of assigning you to do the programming for the website of our new client." My mind went blank. "Are you serious? Why are you bringing this up now?" Cutting me off, Matt continued speaking nonchalantly. Even though he knew my parents were going through a tough time, he said, "I'm thinking of expanding the business. Claire, you're just a housewife with too much free time. Isn't it better than volunteering at your parents' place for free? Besides, it's a wife's duty to help her husband, right?" He spoke as if it was someone else's problem, only caring about his business. I couldn't contain my frustration with Matt's self-centeredness. "Why are you bringing this up now? You know this isn't the right time." Ignoring my heated response, he continued, "Actually, I've asked my big sister to help too. She called saying she got divorced and became a single mom. She asked for support. I'm offering her a place to stay at our house, so be prepared." He was practically forcing me to agree. Matt's big sister is a piece of work. She doesn't lift a finger at home, constantly wasting money, and often gets into loud arguments with her husband, leading to calls from concerned neighbors. Once, she brought her unruly kid to our house. He scribbled on our walls, broke our appliances. It was a nightmare. After all the trouble she caused, I wonder what Matt was thinking, asking her to help with the business, especially since she knows nothing about IT. He ignored my parents when they were in need, but now he's bending over backwards for his problematic big sister. I couldn't hold back any longer. "This is ridiculous. I'm not just sitting around doing nothing. How can you ignore my parents but help your big sister?" Matt, unfazed, looked at me and said, "She's family. It's natural to help her. And how I spend my money is my business. You couldn't help your parents because you don't earn anything." He was the very definition of an opportunist. I shouted back, "So we're not family? We've supported you because we considered you family. That's why your business is thriving." Yet he calmly retorted, "You're so ungrateful. Sure, you gave me a start, but my hard work built the company. Helping your parents is a waste of time. Contribute here. By the way, my sister's moving in tomorrow." I protested, but Matt just continued with his domineering attitude. "I've made up my mind. Just follow my lead. I won't allow you to go back to your parents' house." According to him, since he provides for me, I have no right to defy him. Standing tall and puffing out his chest, he declared, "I don't need a woman who can't listen to me." He then pulled out divorce papers from his work bag. "If you can't obey, we might as well get divorced." "Why do you even have those?" I asked. He had them prepared in case I pestered him too much about helping my dad's business. I was shocked at his level of disregard for anyone outside his immediate family. I was livid. "Fine, I'll sign these and then go back to my parents." I snatched the papers, signed them, and started packing. As I packed, I could hear him muttering, "Such a stubborn woman. Good riddance. Don't come crawling back." I responded with a breezy, "Right back at ya, goodbye," and left. I submitted the divorce papers and returned to my parents' home. Seeing me with my bags, my mom asked, "What happened?" After explaining, she sighed deeply, probably having her own grievances with Matt. Later, I had the rest of my belongings delivered. Not long after, I received a barrage of calls and voicemails from Matt. All his messages were desperate pleas. "Come back, help me. I'll even support your parents, just come back." Matt's plea for help was likely due to his big sister. When I had called his family to report our divorce, I had a hunch something like this might happen. His mother had complained about how her children, including his sister, had gotten divorced one after another. She went on and on about his sister's bad behavior. I had seen a glimpse of it when Matt's sister once moved into the house Matt and I shared. His mother lamented and detailed the main reason for his sister's divorce. Matt's sister had frequent intense arguments with her husband about money, chores, and parenting. These disputes involved their parents, neighbors, and even the police, but she seemed to forget them over time. Apparently, just before the divorce, she got heavily into gambling and racked up a lot of debt. After the divorce, she tried to return to her parents' home with her debt, but her father disowned her. She probably turned to Matt out of desperation. From what I've heard, I can imagine the chaos at Matt's place. Matt, being protective of his big sister, is probably being taken advantage of. Who would want to go back to such a situation? Plus, Matt's sister's child is a handful. The kid doesn't listen and is incredibly aggressive. If you try to scold him for his mischief, he becomes uncontrollable. I can visualize the mess in their house. I never want to see the scribbles and broken electronics from his pranks again. I felt like if I didn't reply, I'd keep getting endless voicemails and texts. So I sent a message saying, "Thanks for the offer, but no thanks. I don't need your help. We're not family anymore. Oh, we never were, right?" Immediately after, my phone rang. Matt's voice on the voicemail pleaded, "Please help me. I can't take it anymore. I'm going bankrupt. I can't handle the kid. He's destroying the house." Of course, I didn't answer. Rumors say that by the end of the month, suspicious black cars are often seen around Matt's company. They're probably collection agencies. I've been contacted by mutual acquaintances about delays in his business operations and payments. It's hard because they're people I know, but I've already divorced him and have my father's business to think about. So I tell them that I can't help. About 6 months later, I received a letter. It was from Matt. Inside was a scribbled note and a marriage certificate. The note apologized and said his sister had left, asking if we could start over. I was flabbergasted. What was he thinking? The worst part was in tiny letters and read, "Please take care of the kid." I guess his sister left, abandoning her debt and child. I've heard his business is on the brink of collapse. No way am I going back to that mess. I sealed the letter and sent it right back. As for me, after settling my father's company's debts, I started a new programming office in my name. Employees from my father's company had been reaching out, wanting to come back. Surprisingly, some of them used to work at Matt's company. The employees who had witnessed his sister's wastefulness and arrogance, as well as Matt's recent actions, began to fear that they might be coldly dismissed someday. It seems like the already struggling company is on the verge of further decline. When they heard about my new business venture, they were overjoyed. Of course, all of them are highly skilled and ready to contribute, so I'm planning to welcome them with open arms. I'm genuinely excited about the opportunity to restart and work with these familiar faces again. And my father, who had been deeply depressed due to our company's bankruptcy and had no clear discharge date from the hospital, showed remarkable recovery upon hearing the news. He's expected to be discharged soon. He's already eager to return and work even harder than before. At the same time, I heard that Matt's company went bankrupt. I chose to completely ignore it, so I'm not sure what's happening with him now. Regardless of whether someone is family or not, it's essential to cherish relationships built on compassion and trust.